long have you covered the Trump campaign?
Since the launch, whenever a year plus. He launched in November of 22. How long have we been doing this?
2022.
Been doing this a very long time, since he launched.
Okay. So, and were you part of political coverage back in 16?
I have covered, this is my fourth presidential campaign,
Okay.
going back to 2012.
So what do you think, as someone covering his campaign specifically, how would you compare this year to 2016?
Donald Trump is so much more professional as a messenger. His campaign is more professionally run. Part of this has to do with the idea that there was a civil war in the Republican Party. His side has won. So he's got a much deeper bench of talent that he can pull from, and you're seeing that in how they've run a much tighter ship. Fewer leaks, fewer infighting. They're focused on what they want to be focused on most of the time.
What was your reaction to the choice of Vance today as VP?
The Vance choice isn't terribly surprising. He's super close to a number of people in the former president's inner circle, especially his oldest son, Don Jr. He'd probably been the leading candidate for a while. I don't think Vegas would have given you good odds on anybody else. I don't know how much J.D. Vance helps Donald Trump anywhere in the country. It's hard to imagine some new voter who votes for the ticket who wouldn't have been for Trump but is now because J.D. Vance is on the ticket. But if you're the Trump campaign, you think you're probably going to win, here's a chance to shore up your base, kind of pick the guy in the next generation who you want to be a part of your legacy, and really pick somebody who can be a megaphone for your message.
What do you make of how young he is, knowing that there was criticism of Harris, for instance, who is significantly older than Vance, just a couple of years ago? So to know that Republicans were saying, oh my gosh, she's not experienced enough and has more experience than he does as a junior senator.
I'm old enough to remember the criticism of Barack Obama for having not enough experience, and he was 8 or 9 years older than J.D. Vance is now. I think Barack Obama and Donald Trump have kind of broken the mold when it comes to what we expect in terms of experience from our politicians. I think folks are a lot more willing to vote for, or in this case, candidates to pick vice presidential nominees who have less traditional resumes. We are used to the idea of an outsider, and I think it tells us something that's what voters have kept telling us they want. They don't necessarily want the steady hand, with 2020 being the one exception.
It doesn't always go right. I mean, think about Sarah Palin.
That's right.
Right? It doesn't always have a good ending.
Mm-hmm.
When you go back, I think that was the Katie Couric interview.
Well, look,
right?
I mean, there is definitely risk in picking J.D. Vance. He does not have a long record, and what we know about his record is mostly when he was anti-Trump. He has a long history of anti-Trump comments going back to 2016. He's only a recent convert to MAGA. The Trump campaign is trying to spin that as a positive, the idea that he can explain to people why he came around. But it is a reminder of how many people out there were appalled by Donald Trump and the Republican Party not that long ago.
So did he flip his support because he needed Trump to support him when he was running for Senate?
It's never entirely that simple, but it probably helped, that he saw the writing on the wall about what direction the party was going. And the Trump endorsement was huge for J.D. Vance. He was running in a very crowded primary in Ohio. He needed Donald Trump's support. By picking J.D. Vance, Donald Trump picked somebody for whom he can claim almost full credit for their political career in a way that wouldn't have been true if he picked Doug Burgum or Marco Rubio, who'd both run for president independently, won races independently. J.D. Vance is something of a creation of Donald Trump and his movement as a politician.
So since you've covered Trump for a while, were you surprised that he could get over the fact that he was so critical of him and choose him? Or does that signal to you that he's changing his ways?
It doesn't surprise me, because Donald Trump likes nothing more than a convert. If somebody's willing to admit the error of their ways and become a defender of his, he views that as a personal victory. He has won you over. So that doesn't surprise me that somebody like Vance, who's done a complete 180, would be embraced by Trump. It's when people kind of tiptoe up to that line and he kind of smells that it's insincere that he's not happy about it.
Can I ask you a question about Biden?
Sure.
Do you expect that Biden will be the Democratic nominee, or what do you make of the governor's meeting and all this pressure and his response?
Look, I think the events of this last week, the assassination attempt, the Republican convention, the Vance pick, probably have bought Joe Biden a little bit more time to convince the country that he is still up to the job. He obviously has a big interview tonight on NBC. I expect we're going to see a lot more of him in public. But this is Olympic season, so the metaphor I give is like running the hurdles. Just because he clears one hurdle and he's ahead or in competition does not mean he's in the clear. He's going to have to keep clearing these hurdles under a huge spotlight every day between now and November. That's a tough task.
Is there anything important that I'm missing relevant to today?
I would say this. The convention and the VP pick are one of the last opportunities that a candidate gets to shape their message without outside interference. Donald Trump controlled this message very, very tightly. We'll see how much bang he gets for his buck. The minute this convention is over, it's back up to the voters and the news gods to decide what's going to happen in this world that is going to inform how people make their decisions.
I think it seems like you've not taken a paternity